welcome to a special full episode of Gotta Have Heart Wrestling, hosted by yours truly, Jamel Honus. And today is probably going to be one of my favorite episodes of all time. We are all going to talk about the epic rivalry of two of the most influential and probably two of the greatest stars in WWE's history, even today, even though they're not wrestling currently on the main roster. You gotta talk about these two former friends, former best friends, who are still best friends in real life, but they played the on-screen rivalry in WWE's history that you could probably call rivalry of the decade, rivalry of the century, rivalry in history of the WWE itself. That's right, Shawn Michaels and Triple H. We're gonna be talking about their epic rivalry dating from when they started back in WWE as part of DJ Next all the way into their final encounter, which abruptly ended at Hell in a Cell. Man, if you gotta really talk about the kinds of matches that these two former best friends that played the on-screen role between each other, and you gotta really think about it, this is one of those rivalries that really defined the Ruthless Aggression era. But you gotta really think about it, like how this whole thing started, how the history between Shawn and Triple H would really began even back in 1997 when they first formed the group D Generation X. And it's real too, you know. If you go back to the episode of Monday Night Raw on August 11th, I believe, August 11th, 1997, where you first had Triple H, we're trying to team up with Shawn Michaels to go against the team of The Undertaker and Mankind. And surely enough, this will be one of those, maybe strange Bethel tag team match, because you're thinking, why is Shawn Michaels team with Triple H? And why in the hell is he going to take a team with Mankind? The thing is, you got to understand, this is the ploy, the seeds point in the plot to really, think that, okay, well, Michael did a SummerSlam. Oh, actually, let's pause right there. Let's even go back to what happened at the next SummerSlam. You got The Undertaker, the WWE champion, who had won the championship with Psycho Sid about 4 or 5 months prior to the event, facing the defending champion against Bret the Hitman Hart in East Rutherford, New Jersey at 1997 SummerSlam on August the 3rd, 1997. That event is available on the WWE Network itself. You think about Shawn Michaels was a special guest referee here. But keep in mind, there was a special stipulation placed on Shawn Michaels refereeing himself. If he had not did a good job, he had not called it down the middle, if he showed any favoritism toward The Undertaker himself, that he himself would not ever wrestle in the United States ever again. That is a pretty big risk. For any referee, I don't care if you're big, small, anything of that sort, some sort. But you gotta really think about it here, though. Would Shawn Michaels really risk it all to really, get what he wants? And we all know the history between Shawn Michaels and Bret the Hitman Hart. Those two don't like each other from what's end, They had a long story career, even dating back to WrestleMania 12, the infamous Iron Man match. So you think about it here. Undertaker's the champion, Shawn Michaels the referee, Bret the Hitman Hart the challenger. You really think maybe it's somewhere Shawn's going to try to screw Bret the Hitman Hart, show him to the Undertaker. But again, you got to really think about it here. Shawn does not... I know deep down inside Shawn Michaels, when he was thinking about refereeing that matchup, in that moment in time, he did not want to give up the fact that he couldn't wrestle in the United States ever again if he had not called it right down the middle and show any favoritism towards The Undertaker himself. It's a big risk. You kind of hands tied. Yeah, I found Shawn Michaels. My hands are pretty much tied behind my back. You don't know what you're going to do. But man, at first, this match pretty much both ways. Except that tired chair shot. That chair shot that was meant at Bret Hart for Bret the Hitman Hart spitting right in Shawn Michaels' face. Bret Hart ducks. Shawn Michaels clocks The Undertaker's skull with that chair. Bret Hart's go for the cover. Shawn Michaels has no choice but to cover it. They count for the 3 count. Because if he had did it, of course, Shawn Michaels risks his career of ever wrestling in the United States ever again. Shawn Michaels counts to 3. We got a new WWE champion, Bret Hart. Bret Hart will become a 5-time champion that night. And let's just say it's a bad night for The Undertaker. But The Undertaker's mind, it would be a worse nightmare for Shawn Michaels from here on out. And, man, I thought after seeing that, It was Shawn really attempting to screw the Undertaker to make it seem like he is bigger than the Undertaker's ego. We all know Shawn's big ego. There's no doubt about it. But damn, when I first saw that, I was really as a kid, I'm a big Undertaker fan. I'm thinking Shawn screws the Undertaker. Don't know why. Bret the Hitman Hart's the new champion, and such and such. You know. But as a kid, I didn't know what was really going on behind the scenes to even think that Shawn and the Undertaker would have some kind of a beef, some kind of rivalry. But nonetheless, Shawn Michaels came in next night on Raw and didn't want to take the blame for hitting the Undertaker to have a steel chair and costing him the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Understandable, that's Shawn Michaels doing. Shawn, at the end of the day, is going to do what he does. With anybody by his corner or not. Let's move on to this tag team match on August 11th, Raw. Pretty good matchup here. Shawn and Triple H ended up winning here, but this is what after match. This is what pretty much, what began here. You see Shawn Michaels and Triple H working continuity here, and remember, early that night, Shawn Michaels promised an insurance policy to make sure that he would get one up on the dead man. That insurance policy would be revealed as Rick Rude coming back to the company and aiding both Shawn and Triple H himself in China. And I think that's where this whole DX started. For me, I think people say it started in October. For me, I really think it started at this event here. No, there's no doubt about it. You gotta really think about it here. Why would Rick Rude, a well-renowned legend, Hall of Famer, be assisting Shawn Michaels and Triple H here, along with China, of course? Rick Rude, I'm sure, has no problem with The Undertaker, has no problem with Mankind. But damn, when money talks, it really does talk. But damn, this is where it really started, though. It wasn't even the insurance policy. Let's take that out of the equation for a second. Those two chair shots. At first, Undertaker turns back. Shawn Michaels clocks the Undertaker with a steel chair in the head. Now, this is where Shawn really has to think. Where do you go from here? Does he just leave the ring, ask apologize, and try to get the Undertaker respect? Or he hold the chair and show him who's boss. And Shawn Michaels shows the option to show the Undertaker who's boss. Him with the chair shot again, busting the Undertaker wide open. And damn, I think that night Shawn has sealed his fate with Taker. And, whew, man, he was going to have a work cut out for him there. Also, we see his leading up to the special event, WWF Ground Zero in your house. The first ever Ground Zero in your house, by the way, September 9th, 1997. Pretty good event there. We saw what happened with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match up here. Triple H interfered, China interfered, Rick Rude also interfered. Still could not keep the Undertaker down. To the point where we went to a no contest because 3 referees got knocked out. And Undertaker leaving on the top rope, that's probably the first time we actually seen him do that over the top rope dive. But yeah, nothing was settled that night. Nothing was settled at all. It was a good match. I enjoyed the match itself watching it as a fan, but at the same time, you can't really deny the fact that, okay, they're really starting to put this whole thing together with Shawn, Triple H, China, Rude. There's going to be something here. What they're going to call it, it's going to be something here. We're rolling with the punches here. It's crazy. It's very surreal here. And then, of course, Shawn would go on to defeat the Undertaker first ever Hell in a Cell match at In Your House Bad Blood, October 5th, 1997 here. Thanks of the debut of Kane, mind you. So, that's pretty surreal. So, it's like, what are you going to do? But it was the October 13th episode where they did that backstage promo. And, I think Shawn Triple H one said, we are Generation X, we make the rules, and we will break them. That's where I think, okay, they're going to call themselves Generation X. Clever, it's smooth. These two guys, best friends with attitude, kind of similar to what Shawn Diesel did, but this was way cooler. In my opinion, I think the whole D-Generation X name concept was really a lot cooler. In my opinion. So, but yeah, that's the first time we heard that phrase, first time we heard that phrase, that word, and fans figured out, they call themselves D-Generation X, and it's pretty surreal. The things these guys did every week, whether it was between Mr. Man or even Michael Cole, who had just stepped in business at the time, Michael Cole, who started his career, you know, especially with the shower scene. If you see, Shawn Cole giving DS the interview, and then Triple H just spraying Michael Cole with the shower hose, and like, oh man, definitely such funny stuff here. It really is. So this one I definitely enjoyed it. I was a fan. Don't get me wrong, I was a fan of DS, even though they did take stuff a little bit too far. And oh man, speaking of too far, it's like two things I remember at the end of '97. One, Shawn Michaels stripping onto his boxer briefs, damn near naked, playing poker with China and Helmsley in the middle of the ring. Okay, you know, even though this was the embarking on the beginning, very very beginning of the Attitude Era, and it's maybe we'll take them too far. This is still a family show after all. And don't forget the Christmas special on December 22nd. And them this are in their robes, and oh man, I think we saw two full moons that night, in Lowell, Massachusetts. Oh, Jesus Christ. At that time I'm really thinking like, oh wow, this is how DX will go, and they can even go further and further and further with this. This is pretty surreal here. It really is. So I guess you can say the wrap up '97. This was pretty surreal here to see how far to which and Shawn will go, especially on marking new Attitude Era towards the Rumble, the Road to WrestleMania, all that. Shawn, of course, being that champion by defeating Bret Hart, well, quote unquote, making Bret Hart submit, which will be dubbed as the Montreal Screwjob at the '97 Survivor Series here. That I'm definitely going to talk about episode of that because that was pretty surreal. But yeah, Shawn, better champion. Even on that same Raw, December 22nd, I think, let's see, I'm trying to remember. I think this is the first time I've actually seen these two go one-on-one, thanks to the commissioner at the time, Commissioner Slaughter, making the match between Shawn and Triple H for the European Championship, because Shawn Michaels had not defended the championship since winning it from the Bulldog at WWF's One and Only September 20th in '97 in Birmingham, England. That controversial victory over the British Bulldog at the time. So, what's one way to stick it to the Authority, the Slaughter, McMahon at the time? You play by the rules. And certainly Triple H and Shawn Michaels did. Because he had Triple H bounce off the ropes back and forth like he's a retard. And then you got Shawn Michaels laying there. Triple H doing this fake little tiny bit of splash. And gets the 1, 2, 3. I'm like, okay, they just pulled the wool over our eyes. Of course, Triple H now the new European champion. Shawn Michaels the champion. These both guys get what they want. They're both champions. The Generation X is crazy. Oh, for those of you that don't know, Recruiter, he did shortly leave after and joined WCW. Don't know why. I gotta look up the story about that. Why he really left that up at that time and lead DX to go to WCW. So. That was pretty weird. I couldn't figure out for the life of me about what the situation with that was. So, yeah. Oh, man. Well, heading to '98, we saw that Stone Cold Steve Austin had won the championship. No, not won the championship, but first won the Royal Rumble to get the Shawn championship against Michaels. And it's crazy. You got Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin for the championship. You got the Iron Mike Tyson, a special enforcer for that matchup here. And, of course, you saw the January 19th episode, Monday Night Raw, the night after the Rumble, Austin and Tyson get into the scruffle. And everyone's saying, you ruined it, And it's pretty surreal here. But at that time, you got to think about it. The Generation X this is WrestleMania 14 X-rated. Tagline was called X-rated. Of course, the Generation X around the event with the X-rated tagline for it. So, but the thing is like, it was more centered around Austin, what Austin did to Tyson, what Tyson did to Austin. Instead, Shawn Michaels became the shadowed afterthought here. And this is where a pivotal time came into life, for Michaels at the time. Because he had a very legitimate back injury that mainly started at the Rumble. Especially if you go back to the Royal Rumble in '98, you go back to the Undertaker Shawn Michaels cast match for the WWF Championship. You will see that Undertaker would flip Shawn Michaels over over, outside the ring, over the top rope. The end of his back, the small of his back, caught the edge of that casket so badly that he was in a tremendous amount of pain and still wanted to finish the match afterwards. And it's also in pain that I think this was a rumor that WWF at the time did not order Shawn Michaels to compete any match into WrestleMania. So it gave Shawn Michaels preparation for about 2.5 months to really prepare for this. So it's pretty crazy. It really is. Oh man. And of course, we get to WrestleMania here. Triple H retained the championship, his European title over Owen Hart. Again, creating controversy. And it's really crazy. It is. Shawn losing the championship to Austin thanks to Tyson. And, that was really Shawn Michaels' departure from the ring because we know he had that extensive back injury from what happened in the Rumble. He needed time off the heel. So this is it, for the most part. But yeah, it's crazy. One of the best matches in WrestleMania history, Austin Michaels. And, just seeing that was like, oh man. Yeah, this is definitely the last time I see Shawn for a while, Well, things happen, unfortunately, in WWE. And that's this. Listen to this podcast, not podcast, but sponsorship by Anchor.fm by yours truly, Jamal Honus, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you haven't heard about the Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. The Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it's easy to be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you very much.
All right, we are back on the special Rivalry Triple H Shawn Michaels episode of Gotta Have Heart Wrestling Podcast. And guys, if you're not sure, be aware. I did upload a business website, gotta have heartw.com. And let's just see that you'll see lots of good things about the news and all that. Wrestling news specifically. And even merchandise sales. Selling the Gotta Have Heart Wrestling logo shirt, the original. Either white or black. Or the new one I just created that says my initials in it in a circle. It's pretty amazing. I upload a thing on YouTube. Go to Phenomenal One on YouTube. On Twitter. Really amazing. Oh man. But yeah. It's crazy how, you have your best friends. And it's like they sit together, become one. And that's where Triple H and Michaels was. They was really as close as most best friends, close enough to even say they're like brothers. Nobody can split them apart. But if you guys were to sit down and watch the March 20th episode of Monday Night Raw, and you will see that one day you could actually be as good as him. And speaking of which, this is how I know that people, if they were to compare Shawn to Triple H, they would say Shawn's better because he's been doing the longest. Of course, Big Show's more powerful and just very, very powerful in general. So, as an example. But yeah, this is how at the time people thought that Shawn was the champion, he's the best, he's not coming back. We need a new hero, And even learned that Shawn Michaels was going away after WrestleMania. Not sure how long at that time, because he had the back injury, surgery, birth, all that, no matter what. So, pretty scary, at least for him. But, don't forget, this is not the last time that we would have witnessed Shawn Michaels in a WWE ring in the end of 98. He was hired by Vince McMahon on the November 23rd of Monday Night Raw to announce Shawn Michaels as new commercial of WWF. This is pretty surreal here. Triple H got DJ Next China. Then you got the new cool stuff, the new Jap Outlaws, and X-Pac. But during this time, Shawn Michaels made it clear that he himself would only want to become part of one group, and that was the corporation at the time. And it's pretty surreal. It's just like really, really surreal here, because it must be it probably comes from personal experience. For me, it's hard not to be able to do anything that you would want to do with that person. It is definitely true awe-inspiring. Even at the point where on January 4th, 1999 episode, we saw that, okay, maybe Shawn is back with DX. Is he going to be a leader? Like, what's going to happen? Of course, that didn't happen. It sucks. But well, all good things must come to an end, right? All good things must come to an end. And for that time, of course, that's what Shawn had done. He is the first ever Grand Slam champion. Oh, man. Well, you really got to think about this, though. All that time, Shawn had found the love of his life, got married, became religious, and just started going again constantly. It's pretty amazing. It really is. Oh, man. Well, see further down the line that, we'll see Shawn referee a match that involved Triple H maybe 2 more times the end of 99. Amazing. But, you take orders from somebody, a higher power. So it's pretty crazy. It really is. Oh, man. Who could ever forget the 2020 Royal Rumble? I mean, sorry, not 2020, but the 2000 Royal Rumble. Bro? But the thing is that when you take two of these most amazing wrestlers alive, and you gotta really think about this though. At this point, somewhere down the line, whether it's Shawn cross Triple H or Triple H crossing Shawn, it's gonna happen one day. We'll finally get to see that dream match one day. So even though this match probably would have been good, in my opinion, to happen during the Attitude Era, but it wasn't ready for Attitude Era, especially with Shawn just receiving his back injury like seconds before. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, that's what started all that. Shawn, right to Shawn's injury. It's pretty crazy. Shawn had definitely kept himself busy within those 4 years. Even when in the year 2000, WWE announced that the NWO is coming back. And it's pretty surreal here. It really is. We really didn't know Shawn. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a former U.S. champion years ago in a different wrestling organization. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It really is. As a fan, you get to think that, oh man, what would it be like to see a Triple H Shawn Michaels matchup? It really is, And it's crazy that, you think about it, you got to really, really think about it. What kind of match would you want these two to have? Because we know that between the years, they pretty much can best each other in anything that they do. It's pretty amazing. It really is. So, yeah, pretty crazy, But also, when Triple H having his own new DX, Shawn being the commissioner, even last night went to sleep and, everything was still up. Everything was still up once and for all. Especially this Christmas, But the thing is that, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Triple H is on a roll. Until he tore his quadricep, 8 months out, John Cena returned to Royal Rumble in a huge, huge surprise. And then you got Finn Balor. Finn Balor, former SC champion, dropkick, John going back of the head, the brainbuster, and he would actually beat Goldberg. And it's pretty amazing. It really is. So, but the thing is that fast forward all the way to year, let's say it's down to. And yeah, Shawn, who I guess I didn't really know what to call this. Briefly joined the NWO. You know, I don't know if it was a distraction or ploy, but yeah, pretty crazy. And of course, we see these two get into it again because they had that famous promo. If you go back to WWE Vengeance Sound 2 from Detroit, Michigan, they had that promo about, yeah, Bob Lashley is going to be the next King of the Champion, but guess Mustafa Ali was blowing back of his head saying it's going to be me. So, of course, there's going to be one champion, you know? It's pretty amazing. It really is. But the thing is that, you know, two best friends, get into a heated rivalry no matter what. It will happen one day. But the thing is that when, and that's a big win, you defeat this guy, and now you're the best friend? It's crazy. It really is. But the thing is that, like, when Triple H had returned, and a year later, Shawn Michaels had returned. Before it was advertised, of course, but it's pretty crazy. It really is. And, the thing is that, like, they have been at it for a while. Not really the same type of stand-up for Keith Lee as I would go to somebody, give the full attention to somebody else. But the thing is that these two will mix up here at the Down to Vengeance pay-per-view event with that certain handshake, and Triple H had a pedigree Shawn Michaels runs, and it's that's the way how I don't know. It's really weird, Probably a lot more older than you in this way. Oh man, this is pretty crazy. It really is, because after that event, I think that even though we was like in depth with the Attitude Era, not the Attitude Era, but the Ruthless Aggression Era, you could really tell that WWE was gonna do something magical with this when they said that, we want to make this rivalry as heated as possible. Kicking off with the match that most likely is everybody that that unsanctioned match. Meaning, an unsanctioned match WWE, this is rules. I don't know if the official was an unsanctioned match, but these two guys can beat the hell out of each other, and WWE will not held responsible for what happens. It's pretty surreal here. It really is. It's like things got taken up to a whole new level here. Oh man. Well, sadly, we gotta go back here, and then we'll come back and write special matches from God Have Hard Wrestling by yours truly, Jamal Holness here. Alright, welcome back. We are back with this episode about the Triple H Shawn Michaels rivalry. And where we left off, it's crazy. We didn't tell him to. Shawn Michaels. Well, actually, first start with Triple H. Triple H had just come back from a torn quadricep they suffered on the May 21st episode of Monday Night Raw in the year 2001 with the tag team championship match with him and Austin defending the belts against Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. I know, it sounds like it starts the matchup right there. That's actually, I don't know. This to me will be one of my favorite tag team matches in Raw history. So this will definitely be up there with that. Of course, Triple H got injured. Chris Jericho and Benoit did beat the two-man power trip, as Triple H and Stone Cold called themselves, for tag team champions that night, making history. And Triple H returned back in Madison Garden to a huge war. Even I was excited to Triple H come back in MSG on January the 7th, 2002. But no, that's not only the huge return we had that year. Triple H won the Rumble, Triple H won the World Championship at WrestleMania, lost it to Hogan at Backlash 2002. But also, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels had come out from back injury at Vengeance. And we thought, DX was going to be back together and run Rush Hour over Eric Bischoff on Monday Night Raw. But it's not the case. Not the Vengeance here. We saw Triple H turn on Shawn Michaels, pedigree in the ring, in which, us as a fan, Even me as a fan thought that D-Generation X were going to go back together. That's not the case, unfortunately. And this is what started it. And, we saw some segments where Shawn Michaels was beaten, bloodied, and battered in the parking lot. Turns out it was Triple H here. And they had that via, I guess, via Sky, whatever they call it, telescope, or Skype. I guess that's what I want to call it. And this is what led to the unsanctioned match from the SummerSlam Challenge 2 event here. And it's pretty surreal how this whole thing came about. It really is, I mean, it's like the match never happened. Even though it did happen, clearly. But in Eric Bischoff's mind, when he was the newly appointed Roger manager in the Challenge 2, still said this match never happened. I mean, think about it. Before we get to the matchup, let's think about this whole concept of the Shawn Michaels rivalry. I mean, it defined WWE's ruthless aggression era. No two top wrestlers better personified the phrase, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And so you saw Michaels will return from a lengthy hiatus, 4 years to be exact. A little over 4 years. Only for his best friend to turn on him. Attempt to end his career. That's exactly what was on Triple H's mind, to end the career of Shawn Michaels. Because he simply wanted to be better than Shawn Michaels. He wanted to prove. Triple H had something big to prove that night at SummerSlam that he indeed was better than the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. So I'd say pretty much this rivalry was born out of jealousy. And let's think about it. This rivalry expanded over 3 years. And it has some very brutal moments. As we saw, Triple H returned to MSG. And like I said, even I described it, the pop he had received that night was unlike any other. Of course, he won the Royal Rumble, beat Chris Jericho for the Undisputed Championship WrestleMania 18. Unfortunately, he did lose his title to Hollywood Hulk Hogan shortly after WrestleMania at Backlash. And had been drafted this Monday Night Raw full time to battle for the World Heavyweight Championship. Constantly like most people's careers here, Triple H was awarded the championship on September the 4th. By Bischoff, still don't know how that came about for Triple H to be awarded championship instead of having some kind of tournament to crown a new champion. Even at one point, like I said, described this before, he was reunited with HBK on Raw, but of course turned on him immediately to ignite the rivalry between the two. It still led to SummerSlam. Michaels and Triple H would meet in an unsanctioned match at SummerSlam. This was Shawn Michaels' first match in 4 years. And let me just say this much. This was an absolute show stealer. And probably match of the year candidate in your town too. It really was. I mean, both men, goddamn, they pit each other through hell and back. Until Shawn Michaels went with a jackknife pin. He didn't want to switch the music. He didn't want the elbow drop. He went with a jackknife pin. It's crazy. Unfortunately, after the match, Triple H assaulted Michaels with a sledgehammer. And evidently, Triple H cost Shawn Michaels a couple more months of his career. It's pretty insanity. It's like Shawn Michaels won the match, but Triple H was the last man standing, walked out, without even being carried down the stretcher, like Michaels was. And it's pretty surreal. This match, I would actually grade 4 out of 5 stars. This was a damn good sanction match. If you go back to this matchup and see the table spot where Shawn Michaels lead from the top rope to the outside, crashing through Triple H through the table, it's pretty surreal. But Triple H worked heavily on Shawn Michaels' back to the point where he really wanted to re-injure Shawn Michaels' back, especially with that back body sidewalk slam. Michaels' back connecting with the steel chair, and that was just crazy. Well, it's one of those nasty, iconic moments in that matchup that we probably want to see again, but not too much. It's crazy. And shortly after that, of course, September 4th, Triple H, he didn't win. He was awarded the World Championship. And, at that point, he looked to cement his place at top of the WWE. However, before the Survivor Series, we were just going through October. Triple H won the championship against guys like Rob Van Dam, Kane, retain. I had even Ric Flair aligned himself with Triple H to be his manager full time. But shortly after, HBK returned from injury before the 2002 Survivor Series. And this is what really came to play here. This was to me, in my mind, the next chapter of this rivalry here. It's to the point where Eric Bischoff would announce the first ever Elimination Chamber matchup in MSG plus Survivor Series, November the 16th, 2002. This will be one of those iconic point matches that people can look back on and say, wow, this was an amazing matchup. This first time ever matchup was a success. You had the guys of Chris Jericho, Kane, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels himself. And we all know what happens with Shawn Michaels and his Survivor Series. Very controversial, but very successful. Oh, man. So like I said, Shawn comes returns before the Survivor Series, enters the first Elimination Chamber match where Triple H defended his championship. It's pretty crazy. It really is. But let's get right to it afterwards, though, during this matchup. Triple H survived the brutal match, because mind you, Triple H was one of the first participants to start off the matchup. He wasn't locked in the 4 pods. Triple H had wrestled the whole length of this matchup, from start to finish. So, when HBK entered, eliminated Chris Jericho, it just left him and Triple H by himself. This was so fitting that in the first ever Elimination Chamber match, it came down to both Shawn and Triple H one-on-one, by themselves, nobody else, mano a mano, to really decide who is the true world's champion. That was a pivotal moment. And the fact that it happened in Madison Square Garden made it even more better, made it more grander, more of a spectacle to see, It really did. Let's just say that Michaels and Triple H had an intense back and forth battle. Even Shawn Michaels kicked out of the pedigree. That was so surreal there. You found that glimpse of hope that for the fans out there was really cheering for Michaels that night. And for the people that really had this hatred for Triple H being the world champion, the way the world champion, he being awarded it, and the way he's carried himself within the past couple months before the Survivor Series, had to really think about it, But evidently, before I switch it, Michaels loved switching music and won the World Heavyweight Championship. That, to me, when he won that championship, remember, at the beginning of the night, Survivor Series 2, Jim Ross said this will be one of the most memorable Survivor Series ever. This indeed, the 2002 Survivor Series is one of the most memorable Survivor Series ever to the very date. Shawn Michaels won the championship and posing with the confetti coming down and the blood and tears dripping off his face. And Jim Ross saying, do you believe in miracles? This was a freaking miracle. Who would ever thought Shawn Michaels, who lost the championship to Austin, WrestleMania 14, 4 years later, come back from a career-ending back injury, beat Triple H at SummerSlam, take out a couple more months, and then come back before the Survivor Series, wins the first Elimination Chamber match, wins his first World Heavyweight Championship, and becomes a 4-time World Champion overall. This has got to be one of the greatest comeback stories ever. Well, let's not say this yet, because this ignited the fuel. Because it's really, next time around, Eric Bischoff would announce that Triple H gets a rematch at the 2002 Armageddon pay-per-view event, but this time, it would be 3 stages of hell. And it's pretty surreal here. The first match would be a steel cage match. Well, actually, the first match would be a street fight. The second match would be a steel cage matchup. And the third match, the deciding fall, a match these two know very familiar, the ladder match. It's pretty crazy. I mean, see right to it here. Shawn Michaels had won the street fight. Triple H had won the steel cage matchup here. And evidently, not all good things last forever. Triple H would win the ladder match and winning back his World Championship from Shawn Michaels in that hellish 3 stages out of hell match from Armageddon. It's crazy, Oh, actually, hold on. Think about that match. I actually did it wrong. Triple H had won the first ball with the pedigree in the street fight. Shawn Michaels had won the second ball with a splash from the top rope, up his heel kick through a table. And of course, the third fall, Shawn Michaels was thrown off ladder into a stack of 4 tables outside the ring for Triple H to grab the World Championship belt and win it. This is pretty surreal here. It really is. I mean, who'd ever thought, Who would ever thought? Oh, man. And don't forget, this these two kind of took a break from the rivalry for a little bit here. So, continue it. It's pretty surreal here. But to even talk about more about this and see how more ignited the careers of both Shawn and Triple H themselves. I mean, hell, we have to Town 3, right? And, Triple H being the World Championship had new challengers, such as like Scott Steiner, Booker T, Kevin Nash, Bill Goldberg, who he did lose the championship to Bill Goldberg at Unforgettable Town 3 in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So, looking back at Unforgettable Town 3, it's probably another memorable event for me, at least. Maybe not for everybody else, but for me, at least. Unforgettable Town 3 was a pretty good event. It really was. So, going back to that, and of course for Shawn Michaels' career, wasn't really too bad, though. Because we saw a lot of good matches with Shawn Michaels. Who would ever forget him and Chris Jericho from WrestleMania 19? Classic. Absolute classic, in my opinion. And who could ever forget him, Ric Flair, from Bad Blood Town 3? Another absolute classic. Remember, even though Ric Flair did win that match that night, that match with Bill Goldberg was one of my favorite Ric Flair Shawn Michaels matches, other than WrestleMania 24 in Orlando, Florida, India Town 8. Pretty surreal here. But Triple H, Ric Flair's real, thing for being by Triple H decided to make sure that World Championship stays on Triple H no matter what. Unfortunately, Goldberg had his number at Unforgettable Town 3 and would win the World Championship for Triple H in the Triple H's 9-month title reign here. Evidently, Triple H will get the World Championship back at Armageddon the following year in Town 3 by beating Kane. Goldberg did not lose the championship by pinfall. He wasn't even involved in the decision. This is how crazy this was. Oh, man. Of course, Shawn Michaels getting a huge win over Batista here. And, this will set another matchup between these two men on the final Raw of Town 3. Before we talk about that, I want to be right back after these messages from Anchor.fm. Alright, welcome back to this episode of Gotta Have Rock Wrestling by your truly Jamal Honest. We're talking about Triple H and Shawn Michaels' epic rivalry. You want to talk about epic rivalries? There's one thing on here. One part about this rivalry about a special match that happened on Monday Night Raw, December 29th, 2003. These two battles made event for the World Heavyweight Championship. Not many people remember it, because not to remember, but if you go on the archive section of WWE Network, Monday Night Raw, Year Town 3, the very last episode you'll see. It's pretty amazing, According to no contest, nobody won, but Triple H is still your World Heavyweight Champion. Unfortunately, because as a fan, I want Shawn Michaels to win. But we all can't get what we want. So, the thing is that, you have these two epic warriors. They can't stand each other. They're willing to go through tooth and nail just to see who's the better man. And in this case, who is the better champion. This will lead us to a very memorable match in Town 4 at the Royal Rumble, a last man standing match, thanks to then Raw General Manager Eric Bischoff. Shawn Michaels was determined. I feel like could have been his moment, his time to win back his World Championship. It's pretty surreal. Oh, man. In this match, you can see a pivotal spot in this match up here is the point where Shawn Michaels will go on the top rope. It does a backwards crossbody, try to wedge on the announce table, the Spanish announce table, but wouldn't succeed, missing and crashing and burning. And at this point on, it's like Shawn Michaels was a bloody mess this whole time. It's pretty crazy. I give this match 3.75 out of 5 stars. This is how crazy this match was, and had the ability to really take over the top here. I mean, I enjoyed it. As a fan, I watched the Town 4 Rumble from start to finish, and I gotta say, this is probably the best match that happened throughout the whole night. It really was. So, and I'm pretty sure many of you fans can agree with me too about that. But damn, it's what a match. At the last second, because Shawn Michaels said that any get changed in a second, which is evidently true in mostly any sport that you watch, But yeah, last second, hits the sweet music, goes down Triple H. But since Triple H couldn't not answer the 10 count, Michaels couldn't either. This match, unfortunately, did go into a draw. Meaning that Triple H is still your World Heavyweight Champion. This is pretty crazy. It's like, no matter what, Shawn Michaels can't catch a break and beat in the game Triple H and win the World Championship for a second time. Now, this is where things start to take a twist. We've had SmackDown superstar Chris Benoit win the Challenge for match up here, and going to main WrestleMania Challenge for Championship. This is where the special loophole started this year, Challenge 4, where no matter what, who wins the Royal match, you can challenge for either brand's champion at WrestleMania. Chris Benoit decides to come in as a new superstar from Raw, declare his challenge to Triple H for WrestleMania 20 for the World Championship. Now, of course, Michaels was far, far, far from done with HBK. As he came back, he decided to stick his nose, I guess, into this WrestleMania matchup, making it a triple threat match for the World Championship. This will be an epic match to remember. It really would. At the time, Shawn Michaels was really determined to not only take the World Championship, but beat Triple H, like he said. At this point, HBK received another crack at the title at WrestleMania 20. Of course, it ended up being a triple threat match up here. Following Chris Benoit and three of WWE's most physical superstars went to war in a bloody, exhilarating battle. Of course, Benoit came in on top by submitting the game with a crippler crossface. The three would face off again at Backlash, but Benoit's hometown advantage helped him pick up a second win over the two. So think about it. You've had one of probably the greatest WrestleMania matches, slashing events as the world champion of all time. Then you do it again at Backlash. This is where it's cool things how to play. He makes Triple H tap out after the 20. He makes Shawn Michaels tap out at Backlash. It's pretty surreal. It really is. I gotta say, this is one of those great moments that that you make somebody a superstar and they go all out and order way well. This is pretty cool right here. This is pretty cool to compare WrestleMania 20 match to the Backlash match as the same but different in a way. Pretty crazy. As a fan, I enjoyed both matches. I really did. If I had to go back and pick one match so far that happened between these two that was really good, I would say this 3 Stages Hell match. And speaking of Hell, as many of you did notice that Bad Blood is coming up. We are guaranteed to definitely have a Hell in a Cell match, but who will it be? It is going to be the hardcore living legend himself, Mick Foley. And you're thinking, Mick Foley Triple H does not have good rivalry taste in room color. So, you gotta really believe here that is Mankind doing whatever you want to call, get out here quick or start building with us. And that's exactly what he did. Even months leading up to Bad Blood, everybody shall have announced that Triple H will meet Shawn Michaels for the very last time, but this side, in uniform, of course. Pretty crazy. It really is. Oh, man. Let's just say that this Hell in a Cell event, of all matches have entered, will be very X-rated. Oh, man. And think about it. This is probably, in my mind, probably the longest Hell in a Cell match ever. Shawn and Triple H both entered the Hell. You steel chairs, tables, ladders, chairs, chains, all that to make sure your opponent's bloody and mangled. Oh, man. This is crazy. Oh, man. Well, Michaels and Triple H will end the rivalry, I guess, for the most part. And in ways, most rivalries end inside Hell in a Cell. This cell match was statistically the longest Hell in a Cell match in WWE's history. It really was. It was almost pretty much 50 minutes. It was crazy. It's also be one of, well, in my mind, people have quoted, not to quote for my personally, but people say it's also one of the most boring matches of all time. I don't believe so. I think the match was far from boring, at least. I mean, Shawn Michaels and Triple H plotted each other into sudden bursts of speed and athleticism, and the fans found the match way too long for a Hell in a Cell match up here. I mean, normally Triple H did win this match, But it will take two pedigrees to put HBK down, who received a standing ovation after the match as well. And I think, after this, the rivalry really come to a exploding halt. Because I can't remember any more big matches between these two men after Time 4. But the ending doesn't neglect the 2 years of bad blood between those two. Evidently, they did reunite in Town 16 on Mr. Man's Spirit Squad, in a famous example of how real life friendship blossomed into a brilliant and violent rivalry on screen. Pretty surreal here. It really is. Yeah. So, it's like these two that have been battling each other for so time now says it's done. We're done. Shawn Michaels, of course, needs to rest himself. And I guess the rest of that point was just from here on out. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with a special full episode of God Have Heart Wrestling by Jamal Holness. Alright, we are back with this full episode of Shawn Michaels and Triple H's epic rivalry by your host, Jamal Holness here. And, oh man, to really put a stamp on this episode, to really deem it as probably one of the greatest rivalries, if not then the greatest rivalry in history. I think that even deserved for it to be called as a nickname. It's so surreal. It really is. And it's like, the more that you watch what Shawn over the years, but they come together with their all, and even though they are old and, people that run NXT currently, you really gotta appreciate the fact that this rivalry really gave us to think that not all friends can be bad enemies. No, in this case. Oh man. And to really think about it, you take that moment of silence. Oh man. And you really gotta believe that at this point, you could etch their names in history books forever and really call the greatest rivalry of all time. As it should be. In my mind, if I had to rank top rivalries, this would be number 4. In my mind, it would really be number 4. But first of all, I want to thank you guys for listening to a special full episode of Triple H and Shawn Michaels' epic rivalry. And I hope you guys had a really good New Year's. I certainly did. Spending it with my fiance and kids, really warmed up for me. I was even up past 12 doing the whole countdown thing. But get this, guys. I had put up a Twitter poll for decide next week's topic on this special episode of God Have Heart Wrestling by yours truly, Jamal Holness. And I'm pretty sure you're thinking, you want to know what the choices are for this vote and what's it going to be. Well, I'm either going to talk about John Cena of the year 2005, Daniel Bryan of the year 2012 through 2013, Chris Jericho, the year 2001, and Mick Foley in 1997. You pick, and go on my Twitter at Phenomenal1J, capital Phenomenal number 1, and capital letter J, and just see the poll there and vote on what's your favorite wrestler topic you want to talk about next week. Now, I'm going to catch some sleep. It has been a really rough night working last night. But here you go, guys. Never failed to disappoint. And I think it did pretty good this episode. It's pretty fun. Well, hope you guys have a good evening, and we'll see you soon.